Don Lemon did something very important in his interview with Katie Fang today. And I think it is something that what a lot of folks who watch the mainstream media every day for their news, etc., I think it does a very important thing. First of all, it puts the mainstream media, it scolds the mainstream media to do what they need to do to free themselves up, meaning the news side of the mainstream media. But also it encourages the audience at large to really do something very important, and that is support independent media if what you want is unadulterated truth. I want you to listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Your streaming show is amazing. I catch you on IG Live as well. You're obviously an accomplished author, but I mean, how important is it then for independent media going into the second Trump presidency? Especially, for example, you clearly have left Twitter. You've left Elon Musk, gone to Blue Sky, for example. These are the digital town squares. So not only can people get their information here at the Katie Fang Show, but they can also get it from you and other independent media platforms. How critical is it to make sure that that voice is allowed for you and others to be able to disseminate the facts, especially going into this next presidency?
Well, it's critical for us to get attention to those of us who are in digital media and may not have the platforms that, a Joe Rogan or whatever. But it's critical for us as journalists. It's tough in independent media to sell, quite frankly, journalism and politics. Advertisers don't like it. You know what I mean? They're afraid of, Republicans buy cereal or Democrats buy, and they're afraid of it, right? Remember what happened with Bud Light. But I think it's even more critical for people like you who are in corporate media to be able to be allowed to speak the truth, to speak truth to power, even when the folks above you, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps above you, all the way up to the owner of the corporation or the shareholders, when they may not agree with what you're saying, when they may want another narrative out there other than what you as a journalist should be putting out there. It's more important that we pay attention to that rather than, I think, independent media. I think independent media is going to do what they do because we don't have a corporate overlord. And we can basically say what we want to say. It's important to support independent media. It's important for the folks who are watching here, important for the people who just average everyday Americans to support. But I think it's more important that you, since you still do in this corporate media game that you still have a big influence. It's a waning influence. I'm going to be honest. We know that this was a streaming election, but still have the big influence that you are able to say what you want to say and what you think is right as a journalist. It is also important, I believe, for journalists who are still in corporate media to get rid of the false equivalence, equivalency, just because some things are objectively bad. A lot of what Donald Trump offers, quite frankly, most of what he offers to America is objectively bad. And because you point that out, it doesn't mean you have to point out something that's bad about the other side because you feel that you need to give balance. That's false. And that's a disservice to the American people. And I think many journalists now feel that they have to do that. I also feel, and I know, that in the back of journalists' heads now, they are thinking, what is my boss going to say if I go in, if I'm tough on a Trump surrogate? Are they going to think that I'm being too harsh on someone unfairly? Are they going to be upset because the guys at the top they want to survive in a business environment under a Trump administration? So I believe the problem, if you really want me to tell you, I believe the problem with corporate media now is that there is no wall between the journalists and the folks on the business end. Journalism should not be about the folks on the business end. They should leave the journalism to journalists and the business folks to take care of the business and not rely on the newsrooms and the journalists for corporate profits.
Well, I'm proud to say that there is a wall here at the Katie Fang Show. And I, as Katie Fang, am listening to what I think
that's why I love you
is
and I
my
watch
true
you.
north, which is always facts and evidence, which is how I was trained.
Why it was so important, or it is so important for somebody like Don Lemon, who was a revered host at CNN, to come out and point out what he did, specifically that those in the corporate media, in the mainstream media, they have corporate overlords which restrict what they can say. He also points out that no longer is there a division between the media corporate side and the news, which used to be fairly independent and didn't have to care for how they delivered the news. That separation is no longer there. So he is urging implicitly that separation be there again. But most importantly, he encouraged the likes of Katie Fan to go out there and, in as much as it may give angst to the leaders on the top of the corporations, telling the truth all the time, that you must find a way to do it. Katie points out that, I do that. She points out that is who she is. But what's important is we know the restrictions of the mainstream media. We know that they can't go too far to one side or the other. But we also know that when it comes to that one deep penetration, in other words, while we can have thousands of us in the independent media doing our work and getting, 50,000 people here, 20,000 here, 100,000 here, one of those shows on MSNBC can pick up at once 3 million, 10 million, whatever. So he urges them that in as much as the corporate overlords want you to restrict what you say, want to create that false equivalency between the left and the right, or false equivalencies between folks. If you challenge one, you're required to find some reason to challenge the other. You have to go against that urge for a false balance, for a false equivalency. I think that's important. I think what he said there is so important. And luckily, MSNBC is one of the few stations that rightfully do that. We have Fang that does it. We have Ali Velshi, who is a master of really figuring out how to tell the truth and not get dumped from the air, like Mahdi Hassan, if you will. And you also have Ayman Mohayadin, who figures out a way to let you know the truth, not necessarily in the absolute terms that it need to be said. Well, after all, you have the independent media to do that. But the fact that a former host at CNN will come out and first of all point out these deficiencies within the mainstream media, and then urge the support of independent media, and he himself now is a member of us all, a member of the independent media. I think it's a very important thing. So I want to thank Don Lemon. He did a live recently, and I spoke a bit to him on the live, congratulating him for the great work he's doing with independent media. But again, having somebody who did the mainstream media come out into the independent media in the form that he has. I mean, Mehdi Hassan has as well too. But again, a mainstreamer like him will make a difference. And I hope all of you that are listening heed the calling and support those of us that are out here really doing our job to make sure that you get the unadulterated truth, that you don't get false equivalencies, that you don't get the media that the corporate overlords want you to get, but that you just get the unadulterated truth. A reason why independent media needs your support however you can.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.